We all have them. Some days feel like the entire universe is on our side. Everything clicks, everything flows. It's as if we're invincible, as if nothing can stop us. And then there are the other days, the ones where it feels like gravity itself is stronger, where dreams collapse, doors slam, and silence screams louder than words. Days where giving up doesn't just feel like an option, it feels like relief. But what if the same person could live both extremes and survive to tell the story? Today, you'll witness exactly that. The greatest and darkest day of a man who, love him or hate him, is shaping the future of our species. This is the story of Elon Musk and the unimaginable contrast between the best and worst moments of his life. But before we show you the day everything changed, you need to know where it all began. Elon Reeve Musk was born in Pretoria, South Africa in 1971. From a young age, he was obsessed with space, science fiction, and building things that didn't yet exist. By age 12, he had already sold his first computer game. He moved to Canada at 17 to escape South African military service and eventually transferred to the University of Pennsylvania in the United States. But college wasn't enough. In 1995, Elon dropped out of Stanford after just 2 days to chase something bigger, the internet boom. With his brother Kimball, he co-founded Zip2, a company that would later sell for over $300 million. Next came XCOM, which eventually became what we know today as PayPal. And with his millions, Elon could have retired, but he didn't. Instead, he did something insane. He poured his money into 3 high-risk ventures, Tesla, SpaceX, and Solar City. People laughed. Experts rolled their eyes. But Musk wasn't chasing comfort. He was chasing the impossible. What drives a man to risk everything again and again? For Elon, the goal was never just money, it was meaning. He wanted to accelerate humanity's transition to clean energy. He wanted to colonize Mars to ensure our survival. He wanted to build things no one else dared to dream of. But big dreams come at a cost. You'll soon see how Elon faced the darkest hour of his life, when it seemed like everything would collapse. But before we get there, let's first take you to the day when all of that pain paid off. The moment that brought him to tears. The day that may well be remembered in history books for generations to come. This is the best day of Elon Musk's life. We all dream of a moment that makes everything worth it. A moment when every failure, every sacrifice, every sleepless night suddenly makes sense. For Elon Musk, that moment came on May 30th, 2020. It was a day that didn't just mark a milestone for his companies. It marked a shift in the course of human history. That morning, the skies above Cape Canaveral, Florida, were calm. But on the ground, tension hung thick in the air. Millions were watching from home, online, and on TV. The rocket standing tall on the launch pad wasn't built by NASA. It wasn't a government project. It belonged to SpaceX, Elon Musk's private company. And inside that rocket were 2 American astronauts preparing to launch into orbit from US soil for the first time in nearly a decade. The stakes? Historic. Because if this worked, it would be the first time in history that a private company sent humans into space. For Elon, this wasn't just another project. It was the result of 18 years of obsession, 18 years of being called crazy, of pouring his own money into a company the world thought was doomed, of watching rockets explode and public confidence collapse. Back in 2008, SpaceX had failed 3 times. Tesla was hemorrhaging money, and Elon, personally and professionally, was falling apart. He was nearly bankrupt, nearly forgotten, nearly done. But he didn't quit, because deep down he believed that humans were meant for more, not just to exist, but to explore, not just to consume, but to create. Now everything he had built was about to be tested. 10, 9, 8. The Falcon 9 rocket rumbled on the pad. Inside the capsule, Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley waited, calm and ready. 7, 6, 5. This was it. 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. A thunderous roar shook the earth. The rocket rose, flames pouring from below, smoke trailing behind. In that moment, Elon Musk closed his eyes, not to block out the light, but to hold in the emotion, because he knew that was his rocket. Those were his people, and that was his dream, breaking through Earth's gravity. This wasn't just about technology. It wasn't just about a launch. It was about rewriting the rules. For the first time since 2011, American astronauts were headed to space from American soil, not aboard a Russian Soyuz, but a ship built by a startup that nearly died a dozen times. SpaceX had done what governments thought was impossible. That rocket carried more than astronauts. It carried proof that with vision, with grit, and with relentless belief in the impossible, a single human being can change the direction of history. Elon didn't jump or cheer or shout. He stood in silence, his hands clasped, eyes moist. For years, he had carried the weight of ridicule, risk, and ruin, and now, finally, he was watching something go right. Not just right, perfectly. SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule successfully separated from the rocket. It entered orbit. Hours later, it docked flawlessly with the International Space Station. The world celebrated. NASA officials applauded. Even Elon's harshest critics had to admit he did it. The boy from Pretoria, who once read sci-fi novels alone in his room, the college dropout who slept on his office floor, the tech nerd mocked on late-night shows, had just redefined the future of space travel. That day, Elon became more than a billionaire entrepreneur. He became a symbol of perseverance, of reinvention, of human potential. And it wasn't just a personal victory. It was a message to the world. It told every kid who's ever been underestimated, every outsider who's been told you're not good enough, every dreamer who's been laughed at, that sometimes the world doesn't believe in you until you give it no other choice. For Elon Musk, May 30th, 2020 wasn't just a date on the calendar. It was the day he proved that limits are meant to be broken. It was the day his vision touched the stars, literally. It was the day everything finally aligned, and above all, it was the best day of his life. Before there was triumph, there was collapse. Before the rockets reached space, they exploded on the ground. Before Elon Musk became the face of innovation, he was on the edge of personal and financial ruin. The year was 2008, a year many remember as the beginning of the global financial crisis. But for Elon Musk, it wasn't just a market crash. It was a slow-motion disaster unfolding in every part of his life, all at once. It began with Tesla. At the time, Tesla was more of an idea than a company. The Roadster, Tesla's first car, had just launched, and it was already a nightmare. The cost to produce the car was far higher than expected. Delays piled up, suppliers pulled out, and critics laughed at the notion that an electric sports car could survive in a world dominated by gasoline and giants like GM, Ford, and Toyota. Investors were spooked, cash was running out, and the media painted Musk as an arrogant, delusional tech bro. At the same time, SpaceX was on the verge of its own death spiral. Elon had sunk more than $100 million of his own fortune into the company. And yet by mid-2008, SpaceX had launched 3 rockets. All 3 had failed. Rockets exploded, engines misfired. One even reached space, barely before crashing back into the ocean. Every time something went wrong, people called it proof that Musk was in over his head. That space was for governments, not geeks with money, that he would never succeed. By August 2008, Musk had enough data to know one thing with certainty. One more failed launch and SpaceX was finished. The company, along with the dreams of building a reusable space program, would be gone forever. But the wait didn't stop there. His marriage was unraveling. Musk's relationship with his first wife, Justine, had turned cold, distant, and volatile. Years of pressure, loss, and personal strain had eroded the love that once held them together. They had already suffered the unthinkable, the loss of their first child, Nevada, to SIDS in 2002. The grief lingered quietly beneath the surface, unresolved and unspeakable. Now, with the companies failing, the finances vanishing, and his home life collapsing, Elon Musk was falling apart. He didn't say much publicly, but those close to him said he stopped sleeping. He barely ate. He worked 18 hours a day, not just out of ambition, but out of fear. He was desperate. And then came December. By then, Elon had put everything on the line. Literally. He had borrowed money from friends just to pay rent. He had maxed out his personal fortune, keeping Tesla and SpaceX alive. He was flying back and forth between California and Cape Canaveral, sleeping on factory floors, reviewing code, solving engineering problems, and taking calls with investors, all while fighting to keep custody of his children during a painful divorce. And on December 23rd, 2008, everything came to a final boiling point. Tesla needed a funding round immediately. Without it, the company would go bankrupt before the end of the year. SpaceX, meanwhile, had just barely succeeded with its fourth rocket launch in September, finally reaching orbit. It was a miracle, but a miracle wasn't enough. They needed money, contracts, a reason to believe. And that's when it happened. On December 23rd, just 2 days before Christmas, NASA awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. At the same time, a last-minute investment deal closed for Tesla, giving the company just enough cash to survive into the new year. Both lifelines came within hours of complete collapse. Had the SpaceX deal come a day later, had the Tesla investment fallen through, Elon Musk would have lost everything. In an interview years later, Elon reflected on that time and said, "It felt like being in a never-ending mental and emotional war. I was so broke I had to choose between saving Tesla or SpaceX. I couldn't do both." But in the end, he didn't have to choose. Both were saved, by the narrowest of margins. Still, make no mistake, 2008 broke Elon Musk, not just financially but emotionally, mentally, physically. He emerged from that year a different man, colder, sharper, more guarded, but also more determined. Because once you've stared down bankruptcy, divorce, and death, there's very little left to fear. And that's why 2008 remains, without question, the worst year and the worst day of Elon Musk's life. Not because of one big explosion, but because everything exploded, all at once, and somehow, in the middle of that firestorm, he survived. Just when everything seemed lost, a crack of light broke through the darkness. It was late December 2008. Elon Musk sat in his small office, exhausted, emotionally shattered, and nearly bankrupt. He had poured every cent he had into Tesla and SpaceX. Friends told him to let go. Advisors warned him it was over, but he refused to walk away. Then the impossible happened. On December 23rd, with only days of cash left, NASA called. They awarded SpaceX a $6 billion contract to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. Musk sat there silent as the news sank in. His hands trembled, his vision blurred. For the first time in months, he smiled, genuinely. It wasn't just about the money, it was validation, it was hope. Shortly after, Tesla secured funding at the very last minute. Once again, just as the company was about to collapse, a group of private investors stepped in, convinced by Elon's passion and unwillingness to quit. He had saved both companies within the same week. Looking back, Musk would later say, "There were times I didn't think we would survive, but if something is important enough, even if the odds are against you, you keep going." That moment of turning despair into victory shaped him forever. The man who had stood on the brink of total failure became the man who launched a car into space, developed AI-powered vehicles, and built the world's largest private rocket company. Elon Musk had lived through both extremes, the glory of success and the pain of collapse. But more than the highs or the lows, it was his refusal to quit that defined him. And that perhaps is the lesson in his story. We all have our best days and our worst, but it's what we do on the hardest days that truly shapes our future.